So with the reconnaissance on the lab a total bust, that just leaves the meatpacking plant. Tobias and Axe scout things out again. They determine that there are biofilters around the entrances that are calibrated to human and steer DNA. The steers are being kept at a feedlot 2 miles away, and each cow has an ear tag. Morphing into 6 steer would be tricky, but Cassie suggests that only 2 of them morph steer, and the rest of them morph flies and hide in the cow's nostrils, because biofilters don't disintegrate things inside other things. Well, okay, but you're not really inside the cow so much as enclosed by it with a fairly prominent opening. It's like saying you can avoid a biofilter by being in someone's fist. But if you're confident that fly in nose thing will work, then why bother morphing steer at all and having to guess which ones the meatpacking plant will take next? Why don't you all morph fly and jam yourselves up the nostrils of the original cows? That way none of you are in line to be butchered. But nobody listens to me. So Rachel, Marco, Tobias, and Axe all fly to the feedlot at night and find the chronologically first 2 steer and acquire them. They do, but a truck shows up out of nowhere full of drunken college kids off to do some cow tipping. Axe knocks them unconscious with his tail blade. Oh, good, didn't want any attention there. The Animorphs return to the feedlot the next day, and Axe and Tobias morph steer. There are a few problems, though. First off, Axe accidentally acquired a cow. Let me make this clear. When they originally went to the feedlot, they were looking for 2 very specific numbered steer without any deadline or any reason to rush. Just how do you hunt for a specific animal, remove the tag from that animal, and somehow acquire a completely different animal? You know what, Axe? You really have no grounds to be pondering major philosophical themes, because you're clearly dumb as a post. Axe acquires another steer, but this leads to the second problem, which is that steers are neutered bulls, and since morphing heals injuries, that means instead of morphing steer, Tobias and Axe morph 2 pissed-off bulls right in front of each other. Okay, this is a much more reasonable mistake, but I can still nitpick it. When Cassie mentioned earlier that steers are neutered bulls, Axe asks what neutered means, but nobody is willing to answer because you can't talk about testicles in a young adult series. You know, neutering is a purely technical term. Unless Andalites have no concept of removing an animal's means of reproduction, there's no reason Axe's translator chip couldn't have translated that for him. But if Axe did know what the term meant, he would have realized that balls grow back with morphing. Plot point brought on by characters refusing to communicate with each other. What is this, Lost? Cassie's able to calm Tobias and Axe down long enough to clip the tags into their ears. The meatpacking truck arrives to grab them, but they quickly realize that the 2 animals aren't steers, but bulls, and start bringing up Andalites. So Marco and Gorilla Morph is forced to render them unconscious. So without drivers, Marco and Jake slip on the driver's clothes, load the cows into the truck, and start driving. And by driving, I mean nearly crashing every 3 minutes. It's only a 2-mile trip, but Marco manages to nearly overturn the thing. So what we have here is a gorilla in a man's suit driving a cattle truck poorly with a 14-year-old wearing clothes that clearly don't fit him on shotgun, while the truck has bulls in it instead of steers that were ordered. All of this just to figure out what the Yeerks need a meatpacking plant for. You know, Jake, being a leader means being able to weigh the risks of a mission and being able to call it off if the risks are too damn high. I know it was hard to say no to your girlfriend earlier, but as you ride in a truck with 2 wheels in the air while wearing another man's clothes, I'd have thought you'd be capable of seeing how fucking stupid this all is. But thankfully, the Yeerks have designated their anti-TV Yeerk division to run this operation. The people at the plant see how poor of a driver Marco is and assumes he's drunk. That either suggests that the people running the plant don't know their own drivers, or that these particular controllers are known for drinking. The former is unlikely. These aren't guys who are driving cattle across state lines. It's just a repetitive 2-mile trip back and forth to the feedlot. I mean, imagine if the meatpacking plant was being used as a secret base for neo-Nazis, and all the employees were neo-Nazis, and by pure coincidence, these 2 drivers, independent of the plant's operations, were also secretly neo-Nazis? No, there's no way the staff shouldn't know the drivers were controllers. Which leaves the other option. And as much as I'd love to see a story about a Yeerk suffering from substance abuse that doesn't involve oatmeal, why would the Yeerks hire alcoholic controllers for this secret operation? That's like if... what the fuck am I even going on about? Because either way, the drivers were not a gorilla and a child. And there is no possible way the Yeerks wouldn't have realized that their truck was being driven by a gorilla and a child. Somehow Marco and Jake managed to park the truck correctly, find a place to hide, and morph flies. And everyone is ushered into the plant. I reached the biofilter. I felt a slight tingle, like static electricity. Then I was through. Marco? Cassie? We're fine, Cassie said. But it's good to get deep. I saw a real fly get zapped for being too close to the outside. Ah, so this was a bad idea. It's nice to be proven right sometimes. Axes push down the line to be slaughtered, and there's an admittedly intense scene of Axe being slowly drawn closer and closer to the killing machines, dozens of dead cattle hanging from the roof. It harkens to that old style of telling a scary story by describing every step of the monster as it comes closer to your door. It would be pretty awesome if it wasn't contributing to the overall meat is murder message that's shoved in our faces. The Animorphs that had morphed fly demorph somewhere and remorph battlemorphs and break Axe and Tobias out in the nick of time. Ah, I see we had nothing planned for when we got into the plant. Jake, you're fired too. A fight breaks out. Visor 3 is there. Visor 3 is always there. And the Animorphs are forced to retreat into a room and seal the door behind them. Inside, they find a number of humans locked in a biostatus, and they also find a computer that has no security on it whatsoever. They easily pull up the files on what's going on here. It seems that the Yeerks are working on a substance that completely removes all free will that they intend to introduce to the local meat supply. These people in biostatus, the homeless people picked up from the streets, are the lab rats, and apparently the experiments have been a success. So, why did the Yeerks need an animal testing lab? I get the meatpacking plant. That's where they're going to introduce the substance to the food. But why do they need a human research facility? What's wrong with doing tests in the Yeerk pool, an establishment you already have control over, rather than taking over a completely new place that is only tangentially connected to the experiments? Certainly you could have gotten chimpanzees into the Yeerk pool if you really wanted to, but why do you even want them? Why not skip the chimp stuff and test directly to humans? Since when is Visor 3 the guy who decapitates his subordinates for reminding him that bugs exist cared enough about human life to have an intermediary step by testing the drugs on the chimps? But things get even dumber when Cassie flat out refuses to accept what the computer is telling them. This is why we're getting killed? Over this? Cassie demanded. Why, this isn't serious enough for you? Marco demanded angrily. I mean, this could enslave the entire human race within weeks. Cassie laughed, almost pityingly. Oh, please, no way this works. 100% effective, Prince Jake countered. It's a lie, Cassie said simply. You just don't want to face reality, Rachel said harshly. I mean, come on. The Yeerks are far more advanced than we are scientifically. They can do this. No, Cassie said firmly. They can't. Come on, we should unfreeze or whatever these people. We have to free them. You can't free them, Marco said. Don't you get it? They already lost their free will. We unfreeze them, they'll do whatever the Yeerks order them to do. Turn on us, attack us. We are not leaving humans in cages, Cassie said angrily. They're not humans anymore, Marco raged. They might as well be controllers. No free will. Slaves. Now you listen to me, Cassie said. No one, nothing, can eliminate free will. Don't be ridiculous. Even with a Yeerk in your head, you have free will. Not the will to do, but the will to think, to believe, to hope, or love, or whatever. Cassie, I try to be patient with you. I really fucking try. But you just know how to push my buttons. You cannot possibly know with 100% certainty that free will cannot be removed. What evidence do you have to support this? What, because the Yeerks can't fully remove it when they take a host? You can harp on about your beliefs all you want, but your beliefs are not evidence. There is so much contrary thought to free will, how it works, if it can be taken away or not, if it even exists, and there still is no consensus on the matter. You are a teenage girl with a limited life experience. You are not an authority on this matter, so stop fucking acting like one. You don't believe that free will can't be taken away? Well, here's a list of things you didn't believe in 2 years ago. The ability to change into an animal, alien invasions, dimensional travel, time travel, omnipotent beings that aren't God, magic talking whales, a secret society of androids, the idea of nature being ugly. And you still don't understand those things, so don't pretend you know a fucking thing about free will or how this substance works. What about the elements or Kryak? Are you saying that beings that could erase you from time with a cough couldn't remove your free will? You have no basis for this assumption, and what's more, you're attempting to risk the lives of your friends over this by releasing the test subjects? Trying to free the chimps was bad enough, but here you are willing to risk everything because of something you believe. Fuck you, Cassie. Fuck you with a flagpole. However, things work out, because there's just no way Cassie could be wrong. The Animorphs find a Yeerk scientist hiding in this secret lab area, and he tells them that he fabricated the results to please Visor 3. Not unreasonable. Earlier we saw a controller get his arm sliced off for the chimp poo incident. So the Animorphs unfreeze the test subjects and make an escape plan. The next day at the mall, the Animorphs... You did it again! You fucking did it again! The Animorphs escaped off-screen again! Do you just hate us? Or did you write yourself in a corner and had to whisk the Animorphs away with magic? I mean, what happened? How did the Animorphs escape? Was there a back door to the room they were in? If so, why were the Yeerks only trying to get through the front door? Why not try the back door too? Why didn't they arrange for an ambush or something? Why were the Yeerks trying to ram the front door? What were they using as a ram? Why not blast it with a Dracon beam, or have Visor 3 turn into a huge monster and rip the doors off its hinges? How did the Animorphs get out of the meatpacking plant at all? They couldn't have used any of the normal doors or windows. Those had biofilters on them. Did they break through the wall? Did the Yeerk scientists turn the biofilters off? How could they run away from the plant without getting shot? Where did the test subjects go? Did they get recaptured? Where did the Yeerk scientists go? How far did the Animorphs escort them before they ditched them to demorph? How long did the Yeerks pursue them? The answer to all these questions is, I don't care. I'm not here to write solid action pieces. I'm here to force my vegan, environmentalist, drinking my own pee message down your throats. And it's funny because we're at the last chapter and, well, the Animorphs are at the mall, and they all order hamburgers. Yes, even Axe, despite his trauma earlier. In tone and content, it's completely off the rails from what we had earlier. And the reason for that is that K.A. Applegate herself rewrote it. It seems that she was in disagreement with Amy and put in this last chapter to more accurately reflect her own feelings. Here's what K.A. said on the matter. I took some grief for this from the fans. A fair number were upset that I ended with all the Animorphs ordering hamburgers. I am in favor of being as humane as possible in dealing with livestock, but I'm not a vegetarian. I kinda think that I'll start worrying about the treatment of cows once there are no more political prisoners, no more children dying of curable diseases, and no more fanatics blowing themselves up to murder civilians. And I gotta say, I agree with her 100%. And you gotta realize, Applegate is a pretty environmentally conscious person. Otherwise Cassie wouldn't exist. She wrote a whole anti-logging book. You have to go pretty far to make Kay Applegate say, whoa, step back a bit. This is going way too far. Of course, this is before the readers were aware of the existence of ghostwriters. So what this looked like back then was Kay Applegate being completely wishy-washy with her message. Hooray! Everyone loses! Post-book follow-up. This is not one of the more commonly disliked Animorphs books in fandom, but there's little about it here that I personally like. Let me be clear that I can totally be fair with an otherwise good book if I don't agree with the message. I'll certainly debate the message, but if the book is still well written, there are interesting moments, the characters are good, I'll say so. This is not a book I can say those things. The pacing is all wrong. The runaway gag with Axe watching television trips things up at all the wrong times, and it never goes anywhere. That time could have been spent writing out the 2 escape scenes that were completely skipped over, and boy do I feel cheated over that. The characters are all fucked up. Cassie's annoying behavior is turned up to 11. She threatens the lives of her friends on more than one occasion because of her ass-backwards beliefs, and nobody seems to be willing to call her on it. Jake seems to have lost his balls lately, seemingly unable to actually control his team or come up with a plan that isn't totally retarded. Axe is missing his typical detachment that we saw in previous books. We're used to him being distant and emotionally uninvested. Then suddenly, bam, he's getting all weepy over some chimpanzees. This comes out of nowhere and doesn't really fit with the character as we've seen him before. And you had to sit through all that stupid shit, and nothing actually happens. The free will substance is a failure and the Animorphs have accomplished nothing. That's not by itself a bad thing. You can write an interesting story where the Animorphs miscalculate the importance of your plot. But the least you could do for making us sit through this shit is have the events of the book matter. The message here is ham-fisted and not up for debate until Kay Applegate fucking vetoed it in the last chapter, which is kind of amazing to me and almost makes a book worth reading in a train wreck spectacle kind of way. It should say something that Amy Garvey, this is her only Animorphs book. I give number 28, The Experiment, a 2 out of 10.
The stars on